urgent.
The Pokrovsk trap is closing. The AFU have turned the front around. The unbelievable has happened. Airborne troops have landed on the heights. The enemy is in panic. These shots are blowing up the internet. Pokrovsk has become the end of Putin's army. Tursky and Zelensky have made urgent statements about the situation there. You have to hear this. All this and more coming up. Watch until the end. Ukraine Today welcomes you. Renata Aslanova and the latest events. Urgent. Budanov's airborne troops have stormed the front. Special forces from the GUR have launched a complex operation in Pokrovsk. Military intelligence assault troops entered areas of the city that the Russian command considered under their control. The goal of the operation is to protect the supply routes of Ukrainian forces. It is noted that these areas are considered strategically important for Ukrainian logistics. Several helicopters are involved in the operation. Budanov is on site and personally directing the operation.
After the successful airborne operation, additional special forces joined the GUR commandos who had secured certain positions by breaking through a ground corridor.
Combat operations also continue, aimed at eliminating enemy attempts to expand fire impact on logistics in the GUR's area of responsibility. Other special units are also carrying out combat missions in the sector. In
order to ensure the safety of the personnel involved, the details of the operation are not being disclosed at this time. Coordinated work continues together with all components of Ukraine's security and defense forces.
A few days ago, Russian authorities claimed that Pokrovsk and its satellite, Mirnograd, were allegedly encircled. The Ukrainian side denied this, but acknowledged the difficult situation in that section of the front. Thus, attempts by the Russian army to encircle the city have been ongoing for a year now. The participation of Ukrainian intelligence officers in the operation was also confirmed by the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Oleksandr Syrsky.
By my order, combined groups from the Special Operations Forces, Military Law Enforcement Service, Security Service of Ukraine, and other units of Ukraine's defense forces, including the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, are also operating in the city.
Meanwhile, the main intelligence directorate has released exclusive footage of the Defense Forces operation in Pokrovsk. The video captures an airborne landing from a helicopter, the destruction of occupiers using drones, tank shootouts, and footage from 5 soldiers' cameras. The 7th Rapid Response Corps of the Air Assault Forces of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported that the defense forces are continuing their operation to clear Pokrovsk of Russian forces. Ukrainian units halted the enemy's advance in the northern part of the city and prevented the cutting of an important road.
In the past few days, the defense forces have created opportunities to reinforce our area of responsibility with additional personnel and equipment.
According to the paratrooper, an active clearing operation is currently underway in the northern part of Pokrovsk. Thanks to the coordinated actions of Ukrainian units, it was possible to stop the enemy from expanding their presence in this area and to prevent the road connecting Pokrovsk and Rodinske from being cut. At the same time, Ukrainian forces liberated a significant stretch of territory previously advanced upon by the occupiers in the Dobropilya direction, which affects Russia's attempts to encircle Pokrovsk. This was reported by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky.
We are increasing pressure on the Dobropilya salient. We continue to liberate and clear territories, which forces the enemy to spread their forces thin and makes it impossible for them to concentrate their main efforts in the Pokrovsk area.
President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky also spoke about the results of eliminating occupiers in the Pokrovsk direction.
There are results in eliminating the occupier. I would especially like to highlight the 79th Separate Air Assault Brigade.
Sensational! A fierce battle in Pokrovsk. The city is on the verge of explosion. Ukrainian forces are closing a deadly ring. The enemy is in panic, their equipment is in ruins, and commanders are cut off from communication. The Kremlin is in shock and lies about its successes, but the scale of the disaster can no longer be hidden. What is really happening on this and other sections of the front? All of this will be covered in the following report.
A Ukrainian crew of a German Leopard tank crushes a Russian FPV-ZH Dun drone with a skid on the highway. Apparently, its operator missed the moment when he could have launched the deadly drone into the sky. Right now, the situation in the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad direction is very difficult, if not critical. Almost half of all clashes along the front line are happening precisely in the Pokrovsk direction. Russian channels are reporting that the city is effectively encircled. The AFU have no chance, but the occupying forces might make a gesture of goodwill.
The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation has received an order from the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Russian Federation to ensure unhindered passage for foreign journalists, including Ukrainian ones, when they approach the AFU command. To visit the areas where Ukrainian troops are encircled in Krasnoarmysk, Dmitriev and Kupiansk. The Russian command is prepared, if necessary, to cease hostilities for 5 to 6 hours in these areas, as well as to provide corridors for the unhindered entry and exit of groups of foreign media representatives, including Ukrainian ones, provided that safety is guaranteed for both journalists and Russian military personnel.
In order to show the supposedly dire situation of the AFU, the Kremlin wants to provide a corridor for Western journalists.
This is an attempt to wage psychological and media warfare, to draw attention to the fact that the AFU is in a bad situation, and to do so in the way Putin wants, with excessive dramatization.
According to the General Staff of the AFU, there is no talk of any encirclement. Fighting is already taking place on the outskirts of both Mirnohrad and Pokrovsk. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that around 170,000 Russian soldiers are concentrated near Pokrovsk. At the same time, the supply of ammunition and provisions to the Ukrainian army is being carried out systematically. All the talk about encirclement is Russian disinformation.
There is no blockade of our defense forces by the enemy in Pokrovsk. These are merely statements of Russian propaganda that do not correspond to reality. The enemy's occupying army is indeed increasing pressure in the Pokrovsk direction, particularly in the area of the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad agglomeration. The situation in Pokrovsk remains difficult and dynamic. Separate groups of enemy infantry are infiltrating Pokrovsk and attempting to move and concentrate within this settlement. General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
In reality, there is currently no genuine likelihood of encirclement of the Ukrainian military forces defending the strategically important city of Pokrovsk. Because if the situation takes a truly unfavorable turn, these troops can withdraw and evacuate to the north. Supply continues. What does this mean? It means that during the ongoing supply of these convoys, these could be trucks or perhaps some other means of transportation, maybe something less noticeable or less conspicuous than large trucks, but nevertheless, the losses that occur remain significant. The number of people in these convoys could actually be much higher than in other similar cases. But even so, despite these increased numbers, the supply of goods and resources continues to move forward and does not stop.
Despite the difficult situation, even if the USSR has to leave Pokrovsk and Mirnograd, the occupying forces will lose a huge amount of equipment and personnel. And this will not change the overall situation along the front line. This is also confirmed by the intelligence services of European countries.
Of course, it is also clear that sooner or later Ukraine will have to withdraw its units from the Pokrovsk district. But as I have said before, the capture of the Pokrovsk district by Russian forces will not determine the overall situation in Ukraine. Ants Kiviselg, head of the Estonian Defense Forces Intelligence Center.
Putin claimed that Pokrovsk would be under the control of the Russian army a year ago. In reality, however, the Kremlin's plans have still not been realized.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Urgent, right now a real hell is unfolding in Kupiansk. Russian units are confused and losing control. Their plan has completely failed. The enemy is drowning in their own positions while the Ukrainian defense forces have resumed a furious pace of counteroffensive. Ukrainian soldiers are confidently advancing, sweeping away the occupiers. See the current situation in the report.
The battles for control over the city of Kupiansk, a major transportation hub in the Kharkiv region, are ongoing.
The situation in Kupiansk remains difficult, but these days our forces have more control. We continue to defend our positions.
Against this backdrop, Russian propaganda has once again released another batch of fake news. The bunker dweller claimed that Ukrainian troops in Kupiansk are not surrounded or blocked. In
the city of Kupiansk, in the year when the Red Army's enemy was effectively blocked and completely surrounded. By the way, I would like to mention that I have already discussed this particular issue in detail with the commanders of the relevant group. After our thorough conversation, they have stated that they have no objection whatsoever to allowing media representatives, including both domestic and foreign journalists, into the enemy's encirclement zone. Ukrainian journalists, so that they could go in and see with their own eyes, personally and directly, what is happening there, and see for themselves the actual condition of the Ukrainian troops who are surrounded. And so that the political leadership of Ukraine would be able to make the appropriate and necessary decisions regarding the fate and well-being of its citizens and its servicemen.
But these statements have nothing to do with reality. This is the painfully familiar old Kremlin tactic. Media blackmail and an attempt to demoralize Ukrainian society.
As of today, I believe the situation has been stabilized. And I hope that our security and defense forces will be able to do everything to ensure that Kupiansk is not captured by the enemy.
In reality, this is not an encirclement, but rather heavy local fighting.
The main direction of the occupiers' attack is not Kupiansk itself, but Kupiansk-Vozlovyi. The occupiers' plans include the possibility of establishing control over this key railway station.
As of October 30th, Ukrainian forces maintain control over most of Kupiansk and key transportation hubs. Russian occupiers have entrenched themselves in small groups on the northern outskirts of the city and in the western part, creating a foothold for further attempts at an offensive. That is,
they are trying to change their tactics and strategy of combat operations in urban environments. It is fundamentally different from the tactics used in Bakhmut 2.5 years ago, when the occupiers employed a large amount of armored vehicles and, accordingly, the so-called local assault tactics to establish control over the settlement.
The main threat remains the northern directions and the enemy's attempts to break through to the Kharkiv-Kupiansk-Svatova highway. This route is vital for supplying Ukrainian units on the eastern bank of the Oskil River. From the south and east, Russian forces have been unable to approach the city. The main supply route for the Ukrainian armed forces remains through the Kupiansk-Uzlovoy railway station and the embankment dam across the Oskil. The dam is periodically subjected to enemy airstrikes, but remains operational, while pontoon crossings serve as backup routes.
In other words, the main goal and strategic objective of the occupiers is not to advance deeper into Kharkiv region, but to repeat the scenario of 1922, when the Izium group of occupiers was considered one of the most combat capable and aimed for an operational encirclement. Ukrainian units are located precisely in the area of the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration. That is the main goal. So the strategic objective of the occupiers is to establish full control over the territory of Donetsk region.
But the enemy has run into the tough defense of the Ukrainian armed forces. Counterattacks by Ukrainian troops are holding back the Russian advance.
At the moment, Ukraine's defense forces are conducting counter-sabotage operations to prevent infiltration, the restoration of Russian occupiers, then urban development, and ultimately gaining direct control over Kupiansk, the key junction.
Kupiansk is not just another point on the map. It is a symbol of resilience, endurance, and military stamina. The Russian army is trying to wear the city down, but the Ukrainian defense is holding strong. And no matter how much the Kremlin tries to pass off wishful thinking as reality, the truth is on the side of those who defend their home, And step by step, they are driving the enemy out of Ukrainian
land safely on the ground.